Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be talking about mutant champions, and more specifically the best mutant champions to rank for, in my opinion. But before we go any further, please do remember that first and foremost, this is a game. If you do enjoy a specific champion, you should rank it, especially because much more often than not, when you enjoy a champion, you tend to use it much more. You know its matchups the most, and you know nuances of that champion in and out, and you would be getting much better results than an average person with that champion would. Therefore, if you do happen to love a middle of a tier champion in most people's opinion, but you think it's an amazing champion, go ahead and rank it. That is what is most important, because we all have different priorities in the game. We have different interests, different preferences, and most importantly, what you think yourself is what's most important for you in the game, obviously. So all of this is just my point of view, my opinion on how I see the game and how I value champions. That being said, let's just jump to it and go over some of the best mutant champions to rank for right now in the game, in my opinion. And probably number one is Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde is a beast of a champion. Now, I have been fairly harsh on her at times, but there is no denying that she is absolutely amazing champion that does demand a know-how and ability from the player. I do expect in time people to become much more confident and capable with Kitty Pryde than they are right now, because Kitty Pryde does tend to be one of those champions where everything can go perfectly up until snap, and then her low health pool kind of comes into play, and then the fight kind of like snowballs down quickly. But the amount of matchups that she can do, the amount of places where she works in Alliance Quest, Alliance War, Battlegrounds, questing situations, so on and so forth, is amazing. Obviously, she has a ton of inbuilt utility, and even unduped, she is a crazy useful champion. But ideally, you do want to have her awakened at least at a Sig 1. And definitely, yeah, I think Kitty Pryde is, arguably the top mutant champion to rank 4 right now, especially if you also care about Battlegrounds. Because otherwise, if you do not take Battlegrounds in consideration too much, I would say that Apocalypse is overall the best mutant and the top mutant to rank 4, because Apocalypse is not only massive, not only has great damage, not only has great synergies and pre-fights, but he has a ton of utility and ton of unique utility. Even in 8.1, you could fully witness how important is that disorient immunity, and the fact that nobody in the entire game is immune to disorients fully like APOC can be. That being said, for everywhere where he shines, and he truly does in Alliance War, Alliance Quest, questing situations, everywhere, Battlegrounds are kind of eluding this guy, and he is just an average Joe pretty much when it comes to Battlegrounds. And the reason for that is because without mutants on your team, you are losing out on that attack bonus that he can get. I believe it's like 15% for each mutant on your team. Then on top of that, you do not have any genetic code, which, well, you have one in most cases unless you go up against the mutant. But going up against the mutant in Battlegrounds, you're much better off with like Nimrod or Mega Sentinel typically. So, with one genetic code, no mutants, his damage is not great in Battlegrounds, and he is a very slow champion. Now, defensively, he can still present some trouble, delay the opponent with his long special attacks and large health pool. But realistically, he is not a Battlegrounds MVP, which is kind of a shame, because otherwise I would have 100% taken him to rank 4 already. And I do think he is worth taking to rank 4. It just kind of depends how much you care about Battlegrounds. And since Battlegrounds is most of the things that I care in the game about, I have not yet ranked 4 this guy. But other than Battlegrounds, he's insane in virtually every other area of the game, and the best mutant and one of the best champions in virtually across the rest of the game modes. Unfortunately, not in the one that I care about the most, kind of. That being said, well worth rank up. Absolutely does not need to be awakened. Has tons of utility, opens up tons of cheese potential, tons of big yellow numbers and crazy matchups with all the synergies. And yeah, there is a very good reason why you should be very happy with your rank 4 Apocalypse. If you have one, if you don't have one, you should try and go and get one as soon as possible. Next up is Archangel, and again, a lot of people think that Archangel might not necessarily be worth ranking up because he does everything at the rank 3, but in reality, every champion does everything well enough at the rank 3 6-star level, especially when PvP is not involved. You don't need a rank 4 for questing, you don't need a rank 4 for alliance quest, you don't need a rank 4 for, I don't know, incursions or whatever else. You only need rank 4s for alliance war, really. Alliance quest if you're super lazy, maybe, but not really, and then battlegrounds. Because this slight rank and attack and health difference can be the deciding factor in between you and your opponent, and it allows you few more mistakes because you have more health. It lets you finish fights a bit quicker, so that's again reducing the amount of time you are in the fight. That's less time to make mistakes, and it's just safer and faster. And with the same reasoning, saying argument, I still think Archangel is worth taking to rank 4, even though he can be such a beast at the rank 3 level. I do think you're going to find plenty of use for this dude. He can be used in Alliance Quest. He's one of the all-time questing MVPs in virtually every single piece of content. If you visit Act 6, Archangel's a beast. If you visit Act 5, Archangel's a beast. If you visit Act 7, Archangel's a beast. In Act 8, he's a beast. Alliance War, he's a monster, and Battlegrounds, he's also a monster. So I do think that he is well worth taking to rank 4. And you probably have seen by now, if I don't have my upload schedules crossed up, that I took mine to rank 4 as well, alongside my rank 4 kitty. Moving further, Bishop. I think Bishop has gained tremendous amount of value with the release of Battlegrounds, and that has forced more people to recognize the strength of Bishop, not only defensively, but offensively. Bishop is definitely very capable in questing. He's very capable in Alliance War offense and defense. He's a very scary defender pretty much everywhere. And obviously, Battlegrounds are also extremely, well, compatible with Bishop. The best part is, for Battlegrounds and majority of the other stuff, you don't even really need to have him super high sig or even awakened. He's going to do virtually everything specifically for Battlegrounds the same. Because you can't... there is one fight, so you can't finish the previous fight with X amount of power. So even unawakened, I think Bishop is worth ranking up, unlike Archangel, for instance. And this is definitely with more focus to Battlegrounds and Alliance War defense rank up, but also in other areas of the game, I think Bishop is still kind of underestimated, and he would surprise you for sure. Next up is Blast from the Past, a champion that I have been dogging on for a really long time. I quite famously have said that Domino was the one rank 3 that I regretted initially. And I did, because I didn't really need and or use her for anything. Now, all of a sudden, Domino is becoming more and more relevant. She has always been a good defender, especially if she's high sig, so like Alliance War defense, check. But on top of that, Kabam A is creating more and more lanes and nodes in content for Domino. We have the mercenary variant a while back where Domino destroyed stuff. We have CAB-EQ mercenary node or quest that appears now and then. We now have 8.1 where Domino Trinity just slays weapon heavy nodes. And on top of everything else, she is a massive pain in most of the Battleground nodes. It requires a very specific counter. If she's high sig, you're basically losing that match no matter what because of the crit fail damage alone, unless you have somebody who's immune to it. So right now, Domino is well worth considering taking to rank 4. I have seen increasing amount of people taking their Dominos to rank 4 for Battlegrounds, for Alliance War defense. But yeah, she's definitely making a comeback. There's no question about that. And it's time to hop back on that Domino train because she is a problem. She can be lethal offensive option in Battlegrounds as well. So she's perfect for dual rank of purpose use. But as a fair enough disclaimer, I will say that you do want to have her at a high sig if you're going to rank her up. But yeah, I didn't ever think, I'm going to say this, I didn't ever think I'm going to put as much value in Domino as I do right now. And I actually never have put in as much value as I do right now in Domino. But right now, she definitely is a champion to watch out for. Moving on, next one is Omega Red. Another champion I have been quite harsh in past. Another champion that had all but slid out of public conversation because Omega Red doesn't really fit the mutant class. Because all of these new nodes encourage mutants with big special attack damage, gaining prowesses, having prowesses, so on and so forth. And Omega Red has none of that. He doesn't have access to regeneration buffs, he doesn't have access to prowess, and even if some node increases his attack with Furies or special attack with prowesses. Omega Red doesn't really benefit from it all that much because most of his damage comes from Death Field, and that's calculated by your original damage instead of modified attacks. So you can give him 10 prowesses, and yeah, his special attacks can hit slightly harder, but Death Field is still going to do the same damage he would do with no prowesses or no Furies. And on top of it, the Wake Bomb creates a lot of new champions, kind of holds him back because special animations are getting longer and longer, and spores are easier and easier to fall off. And they push you across the screen, and then they're releasing a ton of robots that he can't tackle, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, when it came to Alliance War, he never exited the picture. And as soon as Battlegrounds came to the game, it was quite apparent that Omega Red can still be one of the most effective attackers in Battlegrounds as well, specifically. So for that, I completely get why people are ranking him up. And I am considering taking him up in near future as well, because he is well worth it if you are focusing on Battlegrounds and Alliance War. If you primarily focus on other areas of the game than Alliance War or Battlegrounds, I would not recommend ranking him up. But for those two specific areas, I definitely recommend him. Obviously, you do want to have him at high sig level as possible. And the last champion is actually Toad. Last champion that I will recommend here, because Toad, I think, is still underestimated. His damage output is much better than many people realize. The base idea is just to spam your level 1s, and then your poison damage output is going to increase even further. Yes, he can have massive level 2 as well, but that is kind of checking out of the fight. So in most of the fights, you basically just want to spam your level 1s, have that regen passive active, and with that you're going to be inflicting much more poisons. And every time you get to your big passive poison, the more prowess you have, the more potent it gets, basically. On top of that, Toad works as an excellent defender with obvious weakness of Omega Sentinel and Warlock and Nimrod that unfortunately do completely nuke him in a matter of seconds. But without those handful of champions, he can be a real problem on defense, especially because he requires an immunity. And also the fact that he kind of abuses skilled champions whenever he goes against them. On top of it, he is a very good Nick Fury counter, not as good as Penny Parker is, however, still very potent, very quick, and yeah, he is definitely also quite capable offensively. So he's slightly understated, you know, obviously we wish he had maybe a tiny bit more, but overall for the roles that he fills, again, if you are focusing on Battlegrounds, if you are focusing on Alliance War, where he can work as a very good defender, you should definitely consider ranking up your Toad. I have a rank 3. I'm super happy. Toad is definitely on my personal shortlist for rank 4 champions as well. And without a doubt, at near future, I expect to have this guy myself at a rank 4 level as well. And on top of it all, he does have access to slow and some other interesting shenanigans like passive stuns and so on and so forth. And also that super easy access to prowess buffs is quite handy. Right, that is about it for Mutant class. Obviously, there are many more mutants that are worth rank up, like both of the Magnetos are worth ranking up. I do think that Professor X is a solid champion, worth consideration. Emma Frost, I think, is a solid champion. I think Colossus is extremely solid. But these are the selections that I made. Let me know what you guys think about them. And I hope you guys found this video interesting. I'm going to catch you guys later. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about